In the year 2347, humanity had stretched its reach beyond Earth's atmosphere and into the stars. Colonies dotted distant planets, trade routes crisscrossed through galaxies, and alliances were forged with alien species that ranged from benevolent to downright hostile. Among these alliances was a fragile peace treaty between humans and the Zixari, a proud, technologically advanced race of reptilian-like beings who ruled over vast territories in the galaxy. But peace is often as brittle as glass, and it only takes one crack to shatter everything. The human soldier's name was Captain Jackson Reed. He wasn't remarkable by any stretch of the imagination. Average height, rugged features carved by years of hardship, and eyes that carried more sorrow than they should for someone his age. Yet, he had earned respect among his peers for his unwavering loyalty and tactical brilliance on the battlefield. It wasn't just skill that made him stand out, it was his stubborn refusal to give up when all hope seemed lost. Jackson never imagined himself standing where he was now, abandoned at the edge of an uncharted alien forest teeming with unknown dangers. His crime: defying orders during a skirmish against rebel factions of the Zixari. The rebels, known as the Varnethi, were ruthless dissidents hell-bent on overthrowing their own government, and humanity stood squarely in their way. When Jackson disobeyed direct orders to retreat during a critical mission, costing the lives of several comrades but saving dozens of civilians caught in the crossfire, he became expendable. A scapegoat. As punishment, the Varnethi captured him and sentenced him to exile within the Ankaran forest, a place whispered about in hushed tones even among seasoned explorers. Legend spoke of creatures so grotesque they could drive a man mad with fear, plants that devoured flesh, and air thick with toxins lethal to most life forms. To send someone there was akin to sentencing them to death. "Good luck surviving this," sneered Commander Zorath, leader of the Varnethi squad escorting Jackson to his doom. His voice dripped with venomous satisfaction as he shoved Jackson toward the dense tree-line. "Perhaps your gods will show mercy where we won't." Jackson didn't respond. What could he say? Instead, he adjusted the straps of his battered survival pack, a meager offering compared to what awaited him inside, and stepped forward without looking back. The towering trees loomed ahead like silent sentinels guarding some ancient secret. Their bark shimmered faintly under the dim light of two suns hanging low in the sky, casting eerie shadows across the forest floor. It didn't take long for reality to sink in. Within minutes, the cacophony of chirping insects and distant howls replaced the sound of his captor's retreating footsteps. The air grew heavier, almost suffocating, and every breath felt like inhaling fire. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he trudged deeper into the forest, each step crunching against the strange moss-like vegetation covering the ground. Glowing mushrooms erupted sporadically around him, pulsating with colors no human eye was meant to see. They cast an otherworldly glow that made navigation both easier and infinitely more unsettling. Soon enough, Jackson encountered the first sign of danger. A vine-like plant coiled lazily near his path suddenly lashed out, narrowly missing his leg. Its tendrils snapped shut audibly, revealing razor-sharp edges glistening with what looked suspiciously like digestive fluid. Heart-pounding, Jackson unsheathed his combat knife and hacked away at the offending growth before continuing onward. Every movement felt deliberate now, every shadow a potential threat. This wasn't just a forest, it was alive, watching, waiting. Hours turned into what felt like days as exhaustion began to weigh heavily on him. Hunger gnawed at his stomach, thirst clawed at his throat, and paranoia whispered insidious thoughts into his mind. Was that rustling behind him merely wind, or something far worse? Did those glowing eyes belong to nocturnal predators stalking him unseen? And then, just as despair threatened to consume him entirely, salvation arrived in the most unexpected form. A sharp whistle pierced the oppressive silence, followed by soft voices speaking in melodic tones unfamiliar yet strangely soothing. Before Jackson could react, figures emerged from the foliage surrounding him. At first glance, they appeared humanoid, though taller and more graceful than any human woman he'd ever seen. Their skin shimmered like liquid silver under the forest's bioluminescent glow, while long flowing hair cascaded down their backs in hues of deep indigo and emerald green. Eyes large and luminous regarded him with curiosity rather than hostility. One of them stepped forward, a striking figure adorned with intricate patterns etched onto her arms and face, glowing softly like constellations scattered across the night sky. She wore garments woven from materials that seemed alive, shifting subtly with her movements. Around her neck hung a pendant shaped like a crescent moon, radiating a faint warmth that contrasted sharply with the cold dread gripping Jackson's heart. "You are not of this world," she said in halting but understandable galactic standard, tilting her head slightly as if studying an exotic specimen. Her voice carried a musical quality that somehow calmed his racing thoughts. "No," Jackson managed to croak, unsure whether to feel relieved or terrified. "I'm a human." Her lips curved into a small smile, revealing teeth perfectly white and impossibly sharp. "I am Lyriel," she introduced herself, gesturing elegantly toward the others flanking her. "These are my sisters. We are the Kaylee 3. He blinked, trying to process her words. Sisters? All of them. They certainly shared a familial resemblance, though each possessed unique features that set them apart. One had feathers instead of hair, another sported delicate fins along her forearms, and yet another bore crystalline protrusions jutting from her temples like antlers. "What do you want with me?" Jackson asked cautiously, hand instinctively drifting toward the hilt of his knife despite knowing full well he stood no chance against such numbers. Lyriel chuckled softly, the sound resembling wind chimes swaying gently in a breeze. "Relax, traveler. We mean you no harm. In fact, you might say fate brought us together." She gestured for him to follow, turning gracefully on her heel without waiting for a response. With little choice but to comply, Jackson trailed after them, marveling at how effortlessly they navigated the treacherous terrain. Where he stumbled and struggled, they glided as though weightless, avoiding pitfalls and predatory plants with uncanny precision. Questions burned in his mind, but he held his tongue, sensing now wasn't the time to demand answers. Eventually, they reached a clearing bathed in ethereal light emanating from massive fungi clustered around a central pool of water so clear it mirrored the heavens above. Here, the Kaylee 3 settled, motioning for Jackson to join them. As he hesitated, Lyriel approached once more, holding out a flask carved from translucent stone. "Drink," she urged gently. "You need strength." Against his better judgment, Jackson accepted the offering and took a tentative sip. The liquid tasted sweet yet tangy, invigorating his weary body almost instantly. For the first time since entering the Anchoran forest, he allowed himself to relax, if only slightly. "So," he began, handing the flask back to Lyriel, "what exactly is going on here? Who are you people?" Her expression softened, tinged with sadness. "We are guardians of this land, protectors of balance. Long ago, our ancestors chose to live in harmony with the forest rather than conquer it. But times have changed. The Varnithi seek to exploit Anchoran's resources, disrupting its delicate equilibrium. Many have perished resisting them, including many of our kin." Jackson frowned, pieces clicking into place. "That's why they dumped me here. To die, or maybe worse, to lure you out." Lyriel nodded solemnly. "Yes. A test, perhaps. Or simply cruelty. Either way, you are here now. And so are we." For the next several hours, the Kaylee 3 tended to Jackson's wounds and fed him nourishing fruits unlike anything he'd ever tasted. Through broken conversations and gestures, he learned snippets of their culture, their reverence for nature, their connection to the cosmos, their belief in destiny intertwining lives across galaxies. Despite their differences, he found himself drawn to them, not just physically, but emotionally. There was wisdom in their gazes, kindness in their actions, and resilience in their spirits. Yet beneath their serene exterior lay an undeniable fierceness. When night fell and the forest came alive with eerie calls and creeping shadows, the Kaylee 3 transformed into warriors. Weapons crafted from bone and crystal materialized in their hands, ready to defend their sanctuary against whatever lurked beyond the safety of their camp. Watching them prepare, Jackson couldn't help but ask, "Why save me? I'm just a stranger." Lyriel paused, meeting his gaze steadily. "Because sometimes strangers bring change. Sometimes they remind us there is still good worth fighting for." Her words lingered in his mind long after she turned away, leaving him to ponder the strange turn his life had taken. From condemned soldier to unlikely guest among alien saviors, Jackson realized his journey was far from over. Little did he know, however, that the real adventure, and peril, was only beginning. Life among the Kaylee 3 proved both wondrous and challenging. Each day brought new lessons, new revelations, and new dangers lurking just beyond the edges of their protected enclave. Under Lyriel's guidance, Jackson learned to navigate the forest's deadly intricacies, deciphering which plants offered sustenance and which promised agonizing death. He discovered that the glowing mushrooms weren't mere decorations. They served as natural lanterns guiding travelers safely through the darkest hours, provided one knew how to read their rhythmic pulses correctly. Even the air itself held secrets. Certain pockets contained breathable oxygen enriched with minerals that rejuvenated weary muscles, while others carried toxins capable of inducing hallucinations or worse. The Kaylee 3 women treated him with cautious kindness, their interactions marked by an odd mix of curiosity and guardedness. They spoke little of themselves, preferring instead to observe and analyze him silently. Some, like Silra, the feather-haired scout with piercing amber eyes, seemed amused by his clumsiness, offering teasing smiles whenever he tripped over roots or misjudged distances. Others, such as Vena, whose crystalline antlers refracted light into dazzling patterns, maintained a respectful distance, watching him with unreadable expressions that hinted at deeper thoughts. Despite their enigmatic nature, Jackson found comfort in their presence. Their laughter echoed melodiously through the forest, blending seamlessly with the symphony of wildlife around them. Meals were communal affairs, shared beneath the canopy of bioluminescent leaves, accompanied by stories told in lilting tones that painted vivid pictures of battles fought, bonds forged, and sacrifices made. Gradually, he began to understand their language, picking up phrases and nuances until communication no longer required gestures or hesitant translations. Yet, not all encounters were peaceful. On one particularly harrowing evening, the group faced a dire threat when a colossal predator emerged from the shadows, a creature resembling a cross between a panther and a serpent, its elongated body covered in iridescent scales that shimmered menacingly under the dim light. Its roar shook the very ground beneath their feet, sending smaller animals scattering in terror. Without hesitation, the Kaylee 3 sprang into action. Lyriel barked commands in their native tongue, her voice firm and commanding, as weapons materialized seemingly out of thin air. Blades forged from obsidian-like stone gleamed wickedly, while bows crafted from sinew and bone hummed with tension as arrows tipped with venomous barbs flew toward the beast. Jackson, armed with nothing but his combat knife, froze momentarily, overwhelmed by the chaos unfolding before him. "Stay close," Lyriel shouted, grabbing his arm and pulling him behind a fallen log. "Do not interfere unless absolutely necessary." He obeyed, crouching low as the battle raged. The predator lunged at Silra, jaws snapping inches from her face, only to be intercepted by Vena, who drove her crystalline spear into its side. The creature screeched in pain, thrashing wildly, but the Kaylee 3 moved like dancers, fluid and precise, exploiting every weakness until finally, with a final cry, it collapsed onto the forest floor, defeated. Breathing heavily, Lyriel approached Jackson, her expression grim. "You cannot hesitate in situations like this. Hesitation kills." "I'm not trained for this kind of fight," Jackson admitted, frustration evident in his tone. "Back home, we use guns, armor, things that make sense." "And yet here you are," she replied, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Adaptation is survival. You must learn quickly if you wish to stay alive." Over time, Jackson adapted. With rigorous training sessions led by Lyriel and her sisters, he honed skills he never thought possible. Balance exercises atop unstable branches sharpened his reflexes, while mock battles taught him to anticipate attacks and counter effectively. By the time weeks had passed, he no longer felt like an outsider stumbling blindly through the wilderness. Instead, he became part of their unit, trusted and valued for his growing prowess. However, familiarity bred complexity. As days blurred into months, Jackson found himself increasingly drawn to Lyriel. Her strength, intelligence, and quiet vulnerability resonated deeply within him, stirring emotions he hadn't felt since losing everything back on Earth. Conversations stretched longer, lingering glances grew frequent, and moments of accidental touch sparked electric currents neither dared acknowledge openly. One night, unable to sleep, Jackson wandered to the edge of the clearing where the pool reflected starlight like liquid diamonds. There, he found Lyriel sitting cross-legged beside the water, gazing upward as if searching for answers written in the constellations above. "You're restless," she observed without looking at him, her voice barely above a whisper. "So are you," he countered, settling beside her. What keeps you awake? She sighed, tracing patterns on the surface of the pool with her fingertips. Memories. Regrets. Dreams of what could have been. Jackson hesitated, unsure whether to push further. But something in her tone urged him onward. Tell me. For the first time, Lyriel opened up, sharing fragments of her past. The loss of loved ones, the weight of leadership thrust upon her too young, the constant struggle to maintain balance amidst encroaching threats. Listening intently, Jackson realized how much they shared despite their vastly different origins. Both carried burdens heavier than anyone should bear. Both sought redemption in ways neither fully understood. As dawn broke, painting the horizon in hues of gold and crimson, they sat together in companionable silence, bound by unspoken understanding. Neither voiced the feelings swelling between them, but words weren't needed. Actions spoke louder. When the first signs of trouble arrived, it came disguised as opportunity. Scouts reported increased activity along the northern perimeter of the Ankaran forest, an unusual concentration of Varnithi forces gathering resources and fortifying positions. Rumors spread among the Kali III of impending invasion, whispers fueled by intercepted communications suggesting the rebels planned to harvest the forest's core energy source, a massive crystalline structure hidden deep within its heart. This changes everything, Lyriel declared during an emergency council convened beneath the largest fungal cluster. Her sisters gathered around, faces etched with determination and worry. If they breach the core nexus, Ankaran will die. Everything we've protected, all life here, will perish. Jackson listened intently, piecing together the gravity of the situation. Though unfamiliar with the specifics of the core nexus, he grasped its significance. Without it, the forest would collapse into chaos, rendering the Kali III's sanctuary uninhabitable and leaving countless species vulnerable to extinction. We cannot let them succeed, Silra stated firmly, her feathers bristling with agitation. But how do we stop them? Their numbers are overwhelming. Vena chimed in, her crystalline antlers catching the light as she leaned forward. Diversion tactics. Hit-and-run strikes. Anything to slow their advance. All eyes turned to Jackson, who shifted uncomfortably under their collective gaze. Until now, he'd played a supportive role, learning and adapting without taking initiative. But this was different. This wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about protecting something greater than himself. I might have an idea, he ventured cautiously, drawing surprised looks from the Kali III. Clearing his throat, he continued, back home, we use strategic sabotage to weaken enemy strongholds. If we can infiltrate their camps, disrupt supply lines, and create enough confusion, we buy ourselves time to mount a proper defense. Lyriel studied him closely, weighing his proposal. Finally, she nodded. It's risky, but desperate times call for desperate measures. Prepare yourselves. We move at dusk. The operation unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance, albeit one fraught with peril. Splitting into small teams, the Kali III executed swift, surgical strikes against Varnithi outposts scattered throughout the forest. Jackson joined Lyriel's group, tasked with disabling a key communications relay positioned high atop a rocky outcrop overlooking the forest canopy. Clad in camouflage gear fashioned from local materials, they crept silently through the underbrush, avoiding detection by patrolling guards. Reaching the base of the outcrop, Jackson signaled for everyone to hold position while he scouted ahead. Scaling the jagged rock face proved treacherous, his fingers gripping narrow ledges slick with moisture. Halfway up, a loose stone dislodged, clattering loudly against the cliffside below. Tensing, he pressed flat against the wall, heart hammering as nearby voices called out in alarm. Move! Lyriel hissed from below, urging him to continue despite the commotion. Trusting her judgment, Jackson resumed climbing, reaching the summit just as alarms blared throughout the area. Guards rushed toward the noise, providing a brief window of opportunity. Darting across the exposed platform, Jackson located the relay, a complex array of antennae and blinking control panels humming with energy. Recalling basic engineering principles, he worked quickly, rerouting circuits and severing critical connections. Sparks flew as the system shorted out, plunging the surrounding region into informational darkness. Done! He yelled, sliding down the rope Lyriel had secured for their escape. Together, they vanished into the forest, retracing their steps as shouts and gunfire erupted behind them. Meanwhile, other teams achieved similar successes, sabotaging supply depots, destroying transport vehicles, and setting traps designed to ensnare pursuing forces. Chaos reigned among the Varnithi ranks, buying precious hours for the Kali 3 to regroup and fortify defenses around the core nexus. Back at camp, celebrations were brief and subdued. Victories counted for little when larger battles loomed ominously on the horizon. Exhausted but resolute, the Kali 3 prepared for the inevitable assault, reinforcing barricades and stockpiling weapons scavenged from enemy caches. As preparations intensified, so too did tensions within the group. Arguments erupted over strategies, resource allocation, and leadership decisions. Stress manifested differently for each member. Silra grew snappish and irritable, snapping at anyone who questioned her methods. Vayna withdrew into herself, spending hours alone meditating beside the glowing pool. Even Lyriel showed cracks in her usually composed exterior, snapping orders with uncharacteristic sharpness. Through it all, Jackson remained a steadying presence, diffusing conflicts with humor and reason whenever possible. His ability to empathize with both sides stemmed from years spent navigating similar dynamics among human soldiers. Yet, privately, he wrestled with doubts. Could they truly withstand an onslaught from the Varnithi? What price would victory exact, and was it worth paying? During one particularly heated debate regarding defensive formations, Jackson intervened, raising his hands placatingly. Listen, arguing isn't helping anyone. Let's focus on what matters, working together to protect this place. We've already proven we can hit them hard where it hurts. Now, we need unity more than ever. His words resonated, calming frayed nerves and refocusing efforts. Inspired by his example, the Kali 3 redoubled their commitment, strengthening bonds strained by fear and uncertainty. Late one night, as the forest whispered secrets through rustling leaves, Jackson found himself standing guard alongside Lyriel. The silence stretched comfortably between them, broken only by occasional bursts of nocturnal activity echoing in the distance. "You've changed us," Lyriel murmured eventually, breaking the quiet. "Before you came, we fought separately, individually. Now, we fight as one." "Change goes both ways," Jackson replied softly, meeting her gaze. "You've shown me there's still beauty worth defending, even when everything else feels lost." They shared a moment of mutual understanding, acknowledging silently the profound impact they'd had on each other's lives. Whatever happened next, they faced it together, as allies, friends, and perhaps something more. Unbeknownst to them, however, shadows lengthened elsewhere in the forest. Whispers carried on the wind hinted at betrayal brewing closer than anticipated. Not all threats originated externally. Some festered internally, festering wounds threatening to tear apart the fragile alliance holding them together. As dawn approached, casting golden rays through the canopy, neither suspected the storm gathering just beyond sight. But storms always arrive sooner than expected, bringing with them challenges none could foresee, and choices destined to alter destinies forever intertwined. And so, the stage was set for the climactic confrontation looming ahead, where courage, trust, and sacrifice would determine not only individual fates but the future of an entire ecosystem hanging precariously in the balance. The final battle for the Ankaran forest came swiftly, sweeping across the land like a storm that refused to be tamed. The Varnithi launched their assault under cover of darkness, their forces pouring into the forest with ruthless efficiency. Explosions lit up the night sky as they targeted key defensive positions, forcing the Kali 3 to scatter and regroup repeatedly. Despite their sabotage efforts, the sheer number of enemy troops overwhelmed them, pushing deeper toward the core nexus. Jackson fought alongside Lyriel and her sisters with everything he had. Each clash was a blur of motion, blades flashing, arrows whistling through the air, and alien cries echoing in the chaos. His training paid off. He moved with precision, striking down foes while protecting those around him. But even his resilience had limits, and exhaustion began to take its toll. Blood trickled from cuts on his arms and face, but adrenaline kept him going. At one point, during a particularly brutal skirmish near the glowing pool, Jackson found himself cornered by 3 heavily armed Varnithi soldiers. Just as he prepared for what might have been his last stand, a deafening roar split the air. From the shadows emerged the colossal serpent-panther hybrid they defeated months earlier, or so they thought. This time, however, it wasn't attacking them. Instead, it charged straight at the Varnithi, scattering them like leaves in a hurricane. The creature's intervention gave Jackson enough time to rejoin Lyriel, who stared at the beast in stunned disbelief. "It remembers," she whispered, awestruck. "It remembers we spared its life." As dawn broke over the horizon, painting the battlefield in hues of orange and pink, the tide began to turn. The combination of strategic sabotage, fierce resistance, and unexpected allies, like the giant predator, forced the Varnithi to retreat. Their leader, Commander Zorath, issued a desperate order to fall back, vowing revenge as their battered forces disappeared into the dense foliage. When the dust settled, the Kali Three gathered around the core nexus, battered but victorious. The crystalline structure pulsed softly, its light dimmer than before but still alive. Cheers erupted among the women, tears mingling with laughter as they embraced one another. They had won, not just the battle, but the right to continue guarding their sacred home. In the aftermath, celebrations filled the clearing. Food was shared, songs were sung, and stories of bravery recounted late into the night. Jackson sat beside Lyriel, watching the festivities unfold with a mixture of pride and wonder. He had started as an outsider, condemned to die in this alien forest, yet here he was now, an integral part of something greater than himself. It was during these quiet moments that Lyriel turned to him, her luminous eyes reflecting the glow of the fungi surrounding them. "You've done more than save us, Jackson," she said softly. "You've become one of us." He smiled, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. "I couldn't have done it without all of you. You saved me first." She hesitated, then reached out to take his hand. Her touch sent a shiver down his spine. "There is something I must ask of you," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "Something I believe would honor both our peoples." Curious, Jackson leaned closer. "What is it?" Lyriel took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "You are the only male here, Jackson. Our tribe has long been without men, choosing to live independently and protect this land together. But your presence has shown us that unity can come in many forms, and that strength lies not just in independence, but in partnership." Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Before Jackson could respond, she continued, her tone firmer now. "I offer you a choice. Stay with us. Marry my sisters and me. Become the heart of our tribe, the bridge between worlds. Help us rebuild, grow stronger, and ensure the survival of Anchoran for generations to come." For a moment, Jackson was speechless. The idea seemed almost surreal, a human man marrying an entire tribe of alien women? Yet, as he looked around at the faces of the Kali Three, each one filled with hope and trust, he realized how much they meant to him. These women weren't just warriors or guardians. They were family. And Lyriel, she wasn't just their leader. She was the woman who had awakened feelings in him he thought long buried. "I don't know what to say," he admitted finally, his voice thick with emotion. "This is incredible, unbelievable, even." Lyriel smiled gently, squeezing his hand. "Say yes, Jackson. Say you'll stay." Tears welled in his eyes as he nodded, his decision clear. "Yes," he whispered, his voice steady despite the lump in his throat. "I'll stay. I'll marry you, all of you, because this is where I belong." The reaction was instantaneous. Cheers erupted once more, louder this time, as the Kali Three surrounded him, hugging him, laughing, and crying tears of joy. Even Silra, usually so reserved, wrapped her arms around him tightly, whispering, "Welcome home, brother." That night, beneath the twin moons casting silver light over the forest, a ceremony unlike any other took place. The Kali Three adorned themselves in garments woven from starlight and flowers, their beauty breathtaking. Jackson stood at the center of the clearing, clad in ceremonial robes gifted by the tribe, his heart swelling with love and gratitude. One by one, the women approached him, placing delicate crowns of vines and crystals upon his head, symbolizing their bond. When it was Lyriel's turn, she knelt before him, holding out the crescent moon pendant she always wore. "This belongs to you now," she said, fastening it around his neck. "A reminder of the balance we share, and the future we will build together." As the celebration carried on into the early hours of the morning, Jackson felt a profound sense of peace settle over him. For the first time in years, He wasn't running from his past or fighting against impossible odds. He was simply living, in a world that had accepted him, loved him, and given him purpose. And so, in the heart of the Anchoran forest, amidst glowing mushrooms, shimmering waters, and the harmonious laughter of his new family, Jackson Reed found happiness. Together, they vowed to protect their sanctuary, nurture their bond, and forge a legacy that would endure for centuries to come. Under the watchful eyes of the stars, the soldier who had once been sent to die became the hero who brought life and love to a forgotten corner of the galaxy.